to another episode of the Working in Tech live stream. And today we have Adi on the podcast. We'll unpack his career story, learn about how he made it this far in his career, all of the tips, everything that has helped him. And did I say that he's been in the tech industry for 24 plus years? If you want to get the tips that gives you the kind of longevity like that, definitely tune in, stick around, and then we're going to be breaking it all down. Welcome to the podcast, Adi.
Oh man, thank you so much for having me, man. This is a great honor and pleasure.
You know, what's so fascinating to me, as I was saying to you, before we got started was, I'd heard about, UI designers, I'd heard about UI engineers, but I'd never heard about, UI architects. So for those like me who have also not heard about it, what does it mean and how does one even get the job to be a UI architect?
I think I don't know, man. You will find out like around the conversation that a lot of things that I run into tech is kind of like I picked them up and like started running with it. I think like when I started, the concept of a UI architect did not really exist, or I was not aware of it. I knew about UX, even UX. I knew UI designers. Later on, I understood that there was a whole UX behind it. And like I said, there was like a lot of languages that had the UI part baked in into like let's say the backend language, if I can put it that way. If you had Java had its own user interface. You had PHP, they had like a way to express the UI and everything like that. So and then like the designs most of the time were, I would say, very limited, you know. And then we had this explosion of like new designs, and I'm old enough to remember in web development where we were using like tables to have like, you know, to position elements and stuff around. And then the UI started becoming more and more a juggernaut of its own. And then mobile came about, like, and mobile, like, I think like when it came about, changed everything because the user experience shifted to a smaller screen, you know. The user experience had to be like, you know, taken care of in that, like, you know, and then of course, then like where you had a user interface that was very static, very controlled, like, you know, a window that had like a set width and height. Now you had to have flexible windows, multiple platform and things. So delivering all of that, and then the expectation of the customer did not go down, it went up. So, you know, so all of those little things, if you put them together, you know, you are like, okay, now like that UI, that user interface, and how ultimately you are fulfilling the goal of like functionality and responsiveness to the customer, you have to take it seriously, you know. And I think that's where I first heard, I think the first time I heard it, I was working in a medical, like, you know, project, and they were like, we need to architect, like, you know, our user interface. And that's the first time I ever heard that. And I started adding like UI architect as one of my title. But yeah, it's something that you will find different definition for, because what is the UI at the end of the day? What is the user interface? Where does it start? Where does it stop? Is that at the experience level? Is that at the responsiveness level? There's so many layers to it. But yeah, it's a fascinating field to be involved in. Definitely.
So that definitely is a lot, and I want to unpack it. But I think you mentioned something before we got started that
Hmm.
I think might even help people understand it better, right? So of course, if you think about architect in the traditional sense, right, we're talking about you want to build a building. You don't just put like the wood and the nails and everything else that you're going to do and start hitting it all together. That's not where you start, right? You got
Hmm.
to start with some kind of like plan or design. I think you
Hmm.
mentioned something that was very critical, and I want you to maybe go that route and deep dive into it. For big organizations that have multiple web pages, maybe some of them could be hundreds or thousands of pages, right? There has to
Hmm.
be like an overarching vision for how those different pages interact. So, how does the UI architect make sure that that happens? Because that's a layer beyond designing it. That's a layer beyond engineering it, talking about how many pixels are going to fit in here and whatnot. But that's like a higher level. So what does that mean?
So at the end of the day, anytime you're putting like an interface in front of like a user, you have a specific goal into making it as relevant, to that user and as quickly as possible. you know so anytime, most of the time, when like people come on a, and then you'll see that's why you have different type of user experience, and then you will see the same product, the experience that is going to be delivered. If for example, you mentioned big companies, your typical, let's take YouTube, like the way that you experience YouTube, like on a iPad, is not going to be the same way that you're going to experience it on the mobile phone. It's not going to be the same way that you're going to experience it on the TV. So the architecture is always going to be able to or try to understand two to three things. What is the platform? you know what are like the advantages of that platform? What are the constraints of the platform? you know what are the things that just do not exist yet on that platform, and then that cannot be part of the experience? Because the thing is, anything that is going to be a break or like a stop to the customer or to the user having a great experience should be taken away. How do you maximize the platform and the technology that you have in hand? And like, when I say the technology that you have in hand, there's this famous um, um, interview by Steve Jobs where he was talking about the iPad almost like 3 decades before the iPad was here. He already had it in his
Mm,
head. If you think about it, he already had it in his head, but the technology was not there yet you know
mm,
so the thing is, like, now the UI architect in combination, like, with and I say, like, teaming up with the UX designers and the UI designers, is the one who needs to understand what the platform can give you and what the platform like can will take away from you, and then like
mm,
try to maximize the potential of that platform and say, hey, we can go this way. And then of course the UX designers and the UI designers too are going to have that same kind of like, okay, we are going to be on the phone, there are going to be some limitation, but there are going to be too some advantages. So that's the matter of like understanding what you are delivering, how you are delivering it, who you are delivering it to, and then with a very, very small window of error. Because like I was just telling you, it's way harder to gain back a customer, that just walked away from your application or from your like website, than to gain a new one. Because the
mm.
moment that they turn their back, and this TikTok generation, they're not hanging around and like giving you a second chance, so the architecture is like, how do you put in front of the customer the most relevant experience, you know, that is optimized for their device or their platform, and is as responsive as possible. One last example to give you like a way to really imagine that. Do you know that, for example, Netflix, if we are watching the same show, you and I are watching the same show, you know, and then we have been like returning users. Most of us are going to be mostly like returning users. They even have like an algorithm behind that is going to try to figure out, if I show you, for example, like Black Panther, and I show you like, what is the first image, what is the poster image that is going to be more enticing
Appealing
for
to you.
Adi, yeah, appealing to me, so we might be watching the same show, but we might not be having the same experience because of our history. So there's all of those little things behind into what capturing, people's attention, retaining that attention, and maximizing their time on our platforms. So that's where, like, UI architecture is very important in that sense. And then that's just not the work of like a UI person, it's the work of an entire team to understand, like, the strength and limitation of the different platform we have to deal with.
It's so fascinating that you talk about this because, I'm in my role now, I'm interacting more with our tech architects and things like that. And I'm understanding, just the value. It's not just about running code or writing code or shipping code, but oftentimes is understanding, for example, how do you limit, you don't want, for example, multiple teams to go build the same features, right?
Yeah, yeah.
When, for example, especially as an enterprise, right? If you already have something, for example, that does, let's say, authentication, how can more teams in the enterprise leverage that authentication software?
Hmm.
Why
Hmm.
does everybody else have to build their own authentication? But I even want to extend it with that your example of
Hmm.
YouTube, right,
Hmm.
on different
Hmm.
surfaces or platforms.
Hmm.
Ultimately, for example, YouTube know that you can click links on mobile, but they'll put links there. But they know you don't click links on TV, so they put QR codes because it's
Hmm.
likely that you're holding your phone while you're watching your TV. So to
Hmm.
still take you to that experience of being able to go from YouTube to that external platform, it's the same job to be done, but it's different pathways to get there. And that's where that
Exactly.
extra thought comes into play. Yeah, really, really
Hmm.
amazing. So I want to take it all back to the very beginning, right? Again, like I said, you're OG in this industry
Oh man.
and talk us through it. Like, at the time, I know like right now, there's a lot of talk about getting to tech, breaking into tech, all of this and that, and a third. But when you were starting your tech career, none of that existed. So
Hmm.
where did the inspiration, where did the desire to do that, where did that come from?
Well, I mean, we can look at it as simple as curiosity like kills the cat, but it's fortunate that the cat has 9 lives, and I already like exhausted 8 of them. So, you know, but I was always a curious person. Whenever I saw something that worked, I was more interested into finding out how it worked. So you will come to my house and you will see. I mean, I'm old enough to remember like radio transitors and stuff like that. Your younger audience will be like, what is he talking about? But like we used to have like this big box and that was the radio. And then you had to like turn like that dial to get like to, the radio tower. And then all of a sudden you'll hear that little crackling sound and then music start play or somebody in another language start saying something. But as fascinating as it was and beautiful as it was most likely that when you come to my house, you will find it like, disassembled. I will just break it apart. And like, and when I was very young, I was like, where's that voice coming from? And then as I was growing up, I was like, okay, I know that like there's not a guy or a girl inside that voice, inside the box. How are they doing it? So that was the thing. I always wanted to know how things worked. And I always wanted to find out. And my poor mom, who every single time will buy me them toys, and I will always break them apart. So that was that. I was always like a curious person. And then as I was growing up, I started playing video games, and I was, of course, like the very first games to me was like the Atari video game, and then there was Pac-Man in there, and then a little later on there was like Nintendo with Zelda and everything like that. And I was like, man, who are the people behind this? Who are the people actually making this thing move and stuff? And man, if you want to see like a cool OG, man, go back like to when like they had those little like bitmaps, and they had to like manage memory on that stuff. Those guys are and girls that were there, they are the true pioneers, like of where we are today. But that was that. So I was very interested about it. And then in 2000 I came in the US, and actually I stumbled into a class that was like teaching like PHP or something, and then I just sat down. That was not even my class that day. But then I went and I bought the book that day, and I think like it took me maybe, I don't know, a week or two to finish the book. And then that's really how I started. And then somebody told me, do you know somebody who builds websites? I'm like, yeah, I know. And I never built a website in my life. And that's how it basically started. I mean, really.
So tell us the story about that first project. So you've never built a website. You get this gig to build a website. How did that go?
Well, I mean, at that point, I was already about a year and a half into my college in the US.
Hmm.
And I was maybe another semester into it, and I would have my AA. But I could not afford it anymore at that point. So I needed to find a way to support myself. So I mean, I have done any kind of jobs like that is legal, like coffee shops, like a bakery, selling fish at the farmer's market, any job that was legal and that was paying, I did it. But I was saying, I'm like, this is not gonna cut it. I need to find something that allows me to take care of myself. And then being an African, I have family back home that is counting on me too. So I was like, okay, I got to get into computers because I got to get, like, I was already into it, but I got to get a job into this. So I had a friend of mine who was a landscaper, and he was like, man, we really need to put this into a type of like network. It's kind of hard for us to, like, everybody at the time having a website was like having a Ferrari. So I was like, why don't we build a portal? I just did not even know what that meant. I was just like, why don't we build a portal for it where you can like have all the landscapers come, and then they can make us pay a fee. Like, where? But I need to find somebody to build that for me. I know how to do it. It happened to be that there was a portal project on my book at the time, and I just like started like working on it right away. So I literally will go to the library because I did not have internet at my house. I would go to the library and work, and then if it was too late, I would just like be outside of the library with like that little beat up laptop that I had and kept on working until I got to V1. That's really how I got my first job in this.
Wow. So you gave yourself your first job in tech. And like for y'all to really understand like how blessed we are to be in this moment, did you peep the part where he talked about reading about tech in a book? Not
Yeah,
on the on the
yeah,
internet, in a
yes.
book. That's
There was
number
no Stack
one.
Overflow. There was no YouTube. There was none of
There's
that.
no chat GPT.
There was a lot of Barnes and Nobles. There was a lot of bookstores, and then that was just that. You will go to the bookstore and be there. But that one, like I was like watching the Kelsey Hightower interview that you did. Big up to Kelsey, man. It's such an inspiration to all of us. And he was talking about that $35 book. But
Mm,
$35 was a lot of money for me, man, because a job at Starbucks at the time, and I was a supervisor, I was making $7.5 an hour. So $35 for a book was like a lot of money.
that's 5 hours of
So
work.
oh, you see, that's that. And I was just like, okay, but for that book, it was like the Murak, I think it was Murak PHP, Murak Murach. He had like they had a series of book, the publisher, Java, PHP, and I think I grabbed that book, and then that's the first book that I went and I said, I need to invest in this. I'm gonna pay for that for the book, and I'm gonna start working with it. And that was it. Like, basically if I was stuck, I would look into the book if there was something there. The internet, like looking for bugs and stuff, was not that great yet. There was some kind of like indie like forums. I don't think Reddit was even around at the time yet. So yeah, we were on our own, man.
Shout
Yeah.
out to everyone on the stream. You can hear it. It was a struggle, and I hope like this story is inspiring someone because again, I know like for example, like lately you've heard all these stories about the tech industry and like all these challenges, but I think this gives a different perspective, right? We live in a time where the information is readily available. You don't have to spend a ton of money. You already like you can get it on your phone. You don't need any special, device or access or things like that. And I hope that again, this story inspires you to see what's possible and what you can achieve. So, and again, I'll say like, if you get inspired by anything you're saying, drop us likes, drop us fire emojis in the comments. We definitely want to see all the love. And then a little later, we're going to be taking questions. So if you have any questions about your architecture, how to build a career, how to transition your career, how to navigate your career in tech, I'm sure he's going to be providing a lot of great insight on that. So feel free to leave those in the chat. But back to this story, like your first real job in tech, put in an application, got an interview, all of that, how did that, because the reason why I'm asking this question is that is always the biggest hurdle for most people trying to switch
Mm-hmm.
into tech. It's that, you've gained the knowledge, you've finessed your way, you've probably built a project, whether it's paid or unpaid, but, it feels like a big step to kind of like join the big boy league, essentially, right? So, what was that journey like for you?
Yeah, I mean, the thing is though, what the first job I did not interview. I literally talked to a business owner that happened to be my friend, and I said I could do it for him. And then I started getting referral from that because, like, I think I did a pretty good job at it because I started getting referral for it. But I was not really, I would say, tested, into my skills. I did not know really what like a tech interview was like until now. I mean, at the time I was living in Santa Cruz, California, and I was like, okay, but there is a plateau here when you are a tech person. At the time, there was no remote jobs, you know. So I mean, well, that not that I know of, there was no remote jobs. So there was a certain plateau to be a tech, and then now I was just an hour and a half away from San Francisco, and then Palo Alto and San Jose and all that kind of stuff. And I started hearing, like, the salaries there, the life there, and everything. And I'm like, man, I gotta go and find out. But man, the very first day that I did not know that I did not know about JavaScript, that I found out that I did not know about JavaScript, was actually at my first tech interview about JavaScript. I mean, what I had no clue what they were talking about. I was like, what? Because you have to think about it. I did not come from a traditional like computer science. I started my computer science that I never finished. There are a lot of things that I learned on my own, and my learning was very contextual. I needed to find out like how to run, this process. I will go find in the book because with the Barnes and Nobles and library, I could not buy all the books, but I had access to many books. So I would just come take my pile of books, find out the information, put it together, try, and then and it run, and I was happy. But I did not have a linear way of learning this. So when I came to my first, like, what I would say, a thorough like tech interview, there are a lot of concepts that even though I was using them, I did not know how to explain them. I did not know what they meant. The first time somebody told me about a closure in JavaScript, I had no idea what they were talking about. And Lord knows that I was using a closure every single day. But like the moment that it became academic, I was lost. So going back to Kelsey's like interview, there was that moment where I went to my first interview, and then for somebody who already got, by that time I had a few websites under my belt. I had built like something, and then people, and I was impacting people's lives. People were using like things that I built, to make their life and their businesses better. So it was a very humbling moment. And at time I was like, okay, I can go back to Santa Cruz and just like, enjoy my little niche in there. I can keep on growing that and stuff like that. Or let's do this. I have never heard about like interviewing this way. Let me apply to 25 jobs, and I'm going to only apply to the job that I really want at number 10 or at number 11. I will see, like, I literally would go look at, and at the time we were using, what's that thing that everybody was using, that ugly website, but that was very, what is it called? You
Is
will
it
know it.
Craigslist?
Craigslist. Yeah. You'll go to Craigslist, find something, and that guy made so much money, and they never updated that website.
They're
So,
still
but
making the
anyways,
money.
they're still making the money because he knew internet is about link, referral, and everything like that, and ads, and he was already good at that. So I would literally go and find like anything that had to do with like web developer, web, like whatever front. I mean, the term front end did not even exist. It was just web developer. Front end did not exist by the time that I started doing that. And then I will look at all of the similar jobs and I will apply to all of them. Now, I will apply to it and I will go to the first job, and I'm like, maybe I have a 15, 20% of landing that job. But whatever the question was that they ask me, I'll make sure that I ask a lot of questions too. So how would you respond to this? Whatever. And I started building up, and I'm like, oh, okay. I see that 2 or 3 people or 2 or 3 companies are asking the same type of questions. Let me go and understand more about this concept. And I was beyond just getting the job, but that was like, if I'm going to be in this, I want to be like, a master at it. I'm still on the master. I'm still learning. But I was like, okay, I now had a methodical. But by the time I get to the seventh interview, man, I was walking in there like I owned the place, man, and I got very good at interviewing, very, very good at interviewing because, but that's a whole different problem with like data structure and algorithm. We'll talk about that in a little bit. But when it came to web development and like how to put a website together, what are the things that you need to learn, and what are the concepts that are like very critical, and everybody was interviewing the same way. So I was like, okay, let's just do that. That's how I kind of hacked that part of it. But I hacked my learning to start like being able to have the vocabulary, because you have to have the vocabulary in tech. I don't know if that's still true today, but at least it was true back in the days.
Adi, you unlock something that is so important, right? Like I tell, I think we've shared it so many times on this stream or podcast, about the importance of putting yourself out there, right? And it was true then when you're applying on Craigslist, and it's true today when it's Indeed or LinkedIn, right? It's a different experience. Like I think that the easiest thing I can compare it to is this: if you play, 2K, NBA 2K on a console,
Mm-hmm.
you could be the best player in the world.
Mm-hmm.
You can understand conceptually what it feels like, the bounce of the ball, how far you need to be away when you're shooting a 3-pointer, what angle
Yeah.
you need to shoot at. It's
Mm-hmm.
a very different thing when you go and practice on the court. And
Mm-hmm.
you might be able to translate that knowledge very quickly from your mind to the court, but it's not going to be instant
Mm-hmm.
because, first of all, when you're playing it on the PlayStation, it's the ball doesn't bounce. You don't feel that. I know the thing might vibrate, but it's not the same. It's not the same as a ball bouncing, right?
That's not the same.
So
No, no.
it's
Yeah.
not the same. So it's the same exact concept. So you will learn the skill. That will take time. It will kick your butt. You will, when you put your resume together, that's why I, for one, I'm not a big fan of, I'm paying someone to do my resume. If you're going to build a career in tech, you need to know how to do a resume. Now you can pay somebody money to go learn how to create the perfect resume. There's no problem in that.
Yeah.
But are you going to pay someone every time you need to switch a job? Are you going to pay
Yeah.
someone every time you even need to move from one role within your company to the next one? You need
Mm-hmm.
to learn how to do it. And it's the
Mm-hmm.
same thing with interviewing. You might
Mm-hmm.
even, just like Adi was saying, you use that feature every single day. But guess what? You learned it within a context. I need to build this web page. This is what I need.
Mm-hmm.
Now I need to say it to an interviewer. That's a different question.
Yeah. Yeah. That
So
is.
that
Yeah.
part is so, it was true then, like I said, it's even more true now. But
Oh yeah.
anyway, um, so again, to be to have again the kind of longevity you've had in this industry, I know it comes with a lot of ups and downs and
Mm-hmm.
progression.
Mm-hmm.
What does your career what does your career journey look like? Has it always been, roses and butterflies?
Oh no, no, no. I mean, it's been interesting. Let's say that what I like about this aspect of tech is going to be something that has that aspect of always being able to humble you. However much you think there's so much more that you don't know, which is true in many things in life, but it's so like, obvious in tech, So you can get comfortable in your niche and you say like, okay, I'm just going to know this language very well. And even if that language, you know it very well, there is a plateau into like, the tasks that are assigned to you and everything like that, and how much perceived value you have to your client or to your like employer. Those are on evolving term, and that's why you started hearing junior developer, senior developer, staff level engineer and stuff like that. As
Hmm.
a lot of companies in this space are looking into, if you stay long with them, you are like upskilling. So the thing is, like in tech, you never can get, I will not say uncomfortable, but you have to have that like that pleasure, that you have to find that pleasure in like being outside of your comfort zone. You were mentioning render
Mm,
APL, and one of the
mm,
best thing that I heard there was like, I mean, he did not say it at render, but Shannon Sharp, who was like one of the, I think one of the main guests in there, was saying in one of his shows that growth equals getting out of your comfort zone. You cannot grow if
mm,
you can't get out of your comfort zone. And so to me, the funny thing is when I can come into a lot of front of people and say I've been 24 years in tech, but the
mm,
people who really know will tell you that doesn't mean thing. Yeah, I mean that doesn't mean anything because every single day we have things that have not been here 20 years ago. We have
mm,
expectation and challenges that were not there. You know,
mm,
if there's one thing that like those 2 decades of experience have taught you, and that if you were one of the smart one, is how to adapt quickly, and then how to have the joy in learning, and being okay with being uncomfortable. Being
mm,
very okay with being uncomfortable. There's been many things where as a consultant I will come to a company and they will say, hey, we wrote we have legacy code built in closure. I'm like, man, what do you mean? And kind of literally you have to deal with it if you want the job. And I'm like, okay, now I have to go figure out like closure. So that's the thing. You have to be okay with being uncomfortable, and you have to at the same time be confident that you have all of the smarts, to adapt
mm,
quickly, and be effective at something. And then the thing is like the last thing about that part is, if you really don't enjoy doing something, be frank about it and tell them, hey, you know what? And I have done that for clients. This is not for me. I have a friend or I have another company that is going to be best at like helping you with this, but I don't think like I'm going to be impactful enough with this because I just don't have the brain power to get into Go or to whatever else, because you cannot learn everything. At some point you're going to
mm,
have to find your lanes, and then where you're going to, let's say, okay, these are the 4 areas or 5 areas where I'm like, where I'm okay, and that's where I'm gonna leave. That's it for me. But yeah,
mm.
be very good at saying no to, as you are gonna grow older in this space. Be very careful about like not taking everything on, and like be very cognizant about things that excites you, because if they excite you and you're passionate about it, you're gonna have that extra energy to invest in it. But if you are not, then yeah, you're just gonna it's gonna be a waste of time for you and for your customer or for your coworkers. And people see through that. Tech is transparent, man. Tech is transparent. People see through everything. Yeah.
That is so powerful, and I know people are going to be excited about the next question because we've been talking a lot of heavy stuff, right? So let's get to the
Mhm.
fun part.
Okay.
So as a UI architect, what
Hmm.
does salary look like? What does salary progression? So let's say someone is starting new today, they get their first job. How much can they expect to make? By the time they start to maybe spend 3, 4, 5 years and they start to get to mid level, what does that look like? And then, when they get to the point where you are, what does that look like from a compensation perspective?
Well, what I can tell you is, unfortunately, your skills are not going to determine your salary. You know,
Mm,
salary, compensation, expectation, and everything like that. There's gonna be, yeah, you're gonna have to have certain level of skills. But what I'm gonna say by that is, some people who might be way more talented than you have never mastered, the salary game, because salary is like everything else is like, is based on data. you know so if you have a company that is looking for Go developers and there's only 100 Go developers available, they're going to be paid a lot. But if you have a company like that is looking for React developers, man, you are in for a fight, because there's a lot of React and very good React developers out there. So there's the market out there and everything like that. But two, understanding, okay, every single year, let's say if we take it year by year, it's up to you to decide, this is where I'm at financially, this is where I want to be, by next year. And
mm,
is that something that like the current job that you have is going to be able to provide, or are you going to
mm,
have additional stream of income? So Back in the days, we did not have we other income streams meant like physically being present to many places at the same time, which was not possible. But multiple
Mm,
income stream nowadays can be like. So the thing is, when you're going and you say, I want to go after the FANG or the MANG, since like Facebook is like Meta now, after the MANG job and like their salary trajectory, you will see what a level one engineer makes. They don't hide it. They tell you from level one to level seven or however many levels they have, and then understanding what is salary, like what is like. I did not know what compensation was, like take home, which is like what I need for my bills, and then like package, you know. So somebody can come and tell you like we're giving you, a 200,000, 300, 4, whatever it is, but what is stocks, what is like, and then what is a vesting cliff if you are in a startup. There's so many variables. So when you're starting the game of like this, if you're just coming out of college, I would say focus on skills. Stay at your mom's and pop as long as you can, you know. If you are done there, if they like kick you out, if they kick you out because they got tired of you, you know, don't go with fancy. Go with something, decent. You can have something decent and good, you know, and then start like, looking at maximizing whatever salary comes your way, you know. It's a long game. The salary is a long game. And then you're going to train yourself as you go into like how to discuss compensation, how to like, accept an offer on the spot because it's a good one, how to not reject an offer but like, negotiate that offer. There are so many things. Unfortunately too, the way that we have seen that people have in the tech industry to get better salary is by switching jobs, which is not a
mm,
bad thing, which is not a bad thing. If you have been somewhere for a while, you have acquired a set of skills, always give them a chance to give you like, better salary if it's available. But there's always going to be somebody else that might have something in there, and that's why you see that at Google, at Microsoft, at they understood that salary is a trajectory. You cannot have somebody for 7 years bringing value every day, and then you're just going to have them like pretend to the same salary. And then the thing is, if you do that, you're gonna lose them to somebody else, So the thing is, you have to understand that your skills doesn't really sometimes resonates with like how much money you're gonna make. you know
mm,
I have seen
mm,
people with less skills make a lot of money. I have seen people with a lot of skills. When I ask them, like, I don't know if you remember that I think that was Dan Abramov from Facebook, when he
mm,
posted like what he was making, and everybody was like appalled by it. How can but he never, I think now they corrected it. I don't know the internals of the story, but I think that was him. If that was not him, I'm apologizing. But a high profile like that, I know I was making more money than him at the time, and that's not right. This is Dan Abramov. So
mm,
so the thing is, you're really gonna have to go in there because the HR departments, if why would they just raise your money if you never come and ask for it. So the
mm,
thing is,
mm,
there's a way, there's an etiquette, and then you have to create a lot of value every single time. Like Kelsey was saying, just not be like the JavaScript guy with stuff. They be the guy who solves problems, who go and
mm,
inquire about, like, who does more than like what is expected from him or from her, you know
mm,
and show that, like, you are like committed and that you are a valuable piece to like whatever they're trying to put together. Now when it's time to ask for more, that becomes a little easier, and then you have options like, nowadays into other ways to make sure you add to your bottom line.
mm. Absolutely. That's really, really solid advice about how to, build your compensation journey, get to the amount that you deserve. So, one of the things that I think I'm also like interested in learning, and I'm sure people want to know, is as you kind of like build your career, like people tend to make mistakes. What are some of the
Mhm.
mistakes to watch out for in your career journey?
Well, one of the thing is, however much you're gonna go laser focus on your core skills. Are you still here? You hear me?
Yeah, yeah, I can hear you.
Okay.
I'm with you.
Yeah, there you go. Yeah, I think I thought I lost you for a second. But however laser focused you are on your core skills, at least even until today being 2024, don't ever forget that you are working with people, you know? So, meaning that all of the amount of soft skills that you can get, and that's one of the biggest mistakes that I did not do when I was younger. I was just all about the tech. And the thing is, like, a lot of people did not know that I did not have like soft skills because I was scared of like trying to get any other skills. I never felt like that I fit it, like, the description. I'm like always in my head, in my I'm like in my journey, I'm like, I should not be here right now. I'm not fit enough to do this. It's not coming to me easy. I struggle to get like to the solution that I want. I can get you a solution, but the solution that I want, I always struggle to get there. you know so call it like imposter syndrome, call it perfectionism or anything like that. All of those things happen. But in the course of doing that, in the first part of my career, I really did not take good care of knowing that the business person had the same goals. We might have a different way to get to where we want to go, but ultimately a team is like a bunch of like specialties that have the same goal you know
Mm,
and I was forgetting that. And I would say, like, get remember that you are working with people. Be somebody that people like being around. That doesn't mean you have to come and like be a clown or like be a people pleaser, but be a decent person. Be like somebody that is respectful, polite, and then has a lot of empathy. I think like there's no word like that had when I fully understood the sense of like what empathy is. I wish I had it a little earlier in my career you know
mm.
so, and be patient with people and be kind with people. So don't forget that you are working with people, and then that you are somebody that is workable with. Everybody's trying to solve complex problems you know and the world doesn't evolve around you. So I would say laser focus, yes, on your core skills. But if you let the soft skills like go astray, you're not gonna have the reputation or the thing to stay in this game for 10, 15 or more years.
You know why that is so powerful? And I think that that's an element for all the things that we've talked about on this stream. That's one thing we haven't talked about. And it's not, it's a perspective that I have, but I think that people on the outside might not have. So I, for example, I've come from like an entrepreneurship background, meaning that I've worked with very, very small teams. Over my
Mm-hmm.
last couple of roles, I'm now working in enterprise, and it's
Mm-hmm.
so challenging. You're working
Yes.
across different time zones, you're working across, and that's the thing. It's like you need to bring every perspective in the room. It's not
Mm-hmm.
just about how good you are. In fact, if you want your career to grow, it does like if you want to work at companies like the Googles, the Fangs, the Microsoft, one thing that you're gonna discover very quickly is that there are talented people. And like you're gonna see
Yeah.
people and you're gonna fold your arms like, what? You can do
Yes.
that?
Yes. Yes.
So
Mm.
so you realize that but one thing that can never ever get old. I was actually in a town hall where our CEO was talking, and
Mm.
one of the things that I noticed that was so mind blowing is how funny and personable, and like he's talking numbers, like we're talking quarterly numbers, things like that, but he's making jokes, he's going back and forth with people, he's saying all those things, and then you wonder, how are we able to sit in a room talking about the most boring things and it doesn't feel like you're spending an hour? Why? It's because he's developed those people skills. Somebody said something is that the soft skills are really the hard skills, right? Because
Mm-hmm. Oh
everyone
yeah.
can learn how to code, but
Mm-hmm.
you're gonna realize it's not every day that you wake up that you're excited. It's not every day that you wake up that you feel like talking to people. But there are people who literally have to turn that on every single day. And you ask yourself, when skill is parallel, it's the same level, when talent is the same level, but there's one opportunity to be CEO among 20 people, ask yourself what people think about.
Yeah.
And it's the little thing. It's like, when we had this challenge Who was the guy who said, you know what, don't worry about it, we'll take care of it? Or
Yeah,
who
yeah.
complained? People remember.
They
And who
complain.
was the one who reached out and said, let's work together to solve this problem? And
Hmm.
who was egotistical to say, no, we told you it's not going to work and it's not going to work? Those are the things that make the difference in those conversations.
Yeah, I mean, like, my first humbling, because I had many of humbling moments. My first humbling moment, I was working at a company, and they said like, you guys need to. I mean, our tech supervisor came and said, you guys need to go to the forum. We have like, our two main Java consultant. I mean, at the time I was doing a lot of Java. I was not even most of that. It was a little Java and a little web. So and then they told us like there's a couple Java consultant that came, and they kind of want to meet the team and everything, and like, you guys really need to go and talk to them. Man, I walk in there, and the Java consultant is James Gosling, the creator of Java himself. you know so, and the thing
No
was,
pressure at all.
I mean, no, but the guy is there in a shirt, and like some like kind of hippie shorts and everything like that. But the level of like, I mean, you could literally run into him in the hallway, and if you did not know, you will not even think about, like, I mean, by the time when I was walking there, people were like wearing like nice shirts and everything like that, but he was so relaxed. And then I was in the meetings where, like, people were saying sometimes some crazy things that did not have, but the kindness, the way that he was responding to them, and then some other
Mm.
Java developers that were there that were saying things. And I'm in my head, this guy created this thing, man. I think we should just like be quiet, you know. So and listen, but no, he came in as like a developer. He came in as
Mm.
somebody who wanted to understand the problem, like, and then there was other people there who wrote books about Java and stuff, and I was like, man, I got this thing all wrong, man. And that was a very humbling moment for me. I mean, not because of who he were, but the way he carried himself.
Mm. Mm. So we're starting to get some audience questions. The first one is from Jason. It says, which is more difficult to learn, web development or app development?
Okay. Well, I mean, depending on who you ask, the web has become an app platform too. I mean, if you think about all the web APIs nowadays, they most of them emulate, what you're gonna have on the mobile. There are some APIs right now on the web. You can check your batteries if you have, like, I mean, there's so many things that the line is getting blurrier and blurrier. But
Mm.
I would say that the level of difficulty for them are gonna be about the same. You're just gonna have, like we were saying at the top of the hour, understand what each platform is, what are the strengths of the platform, what are the
Mm.
limitations of the platform. So on the web, for example, once you understand that most of the time you're going to be dealing with HTML, and then probably some JavaScript for like the front end, and JavaScript is single threaded and all that kind of stuff, where when you go to app, let's say, when I hope that what Jason is talking about is like iOS or Android or any other thing.
Yeah,
know,
yeah.
those platform too have, like, by default have the multi-threading. They have like a lot of things that has advantages and stuff like that. So to me, they both have the I would say the same level of complexity in matter of trying to understand what are their strengths first, and then the rest,
Mm.
like, uh the coding part is just learning syntax, but learning how to understand people's problem and solve it in a digital way. So
Mm.
yeah, so I will not say like this one is harder than the other, even though for me, I'm more of a web developer than an app developer. I use a wrapper like Ionic to like publish on the app stores. But I have a good friend of mine who's a core like Swift developer, and he's like very good at what he's doing. And sometimes when we have like our venting like sessions, we we run into the same amount of frustration. So I think like look at which one you are passionate about, what are the type of solution you want to go for, and then take the time to understand how you got there in the first place, how you got to what you have today, and then start like thinking about solving problems, within the constraint of that platform. Because the complexity comes with the constraint. If you are able to do whatever you wanted in any platform, then it will not be hard. That's just going to be a matter of learning and practice. But the platforms like add a layer of complexity, and that's where I think like the comparison can be made.
So, I think you're already giving even like beginner advice, but one of the questions that I always like to ask is, of course, I imagine that it won't be like reading, books or Barnes and Noble's route. But if someone was starting out completely new today, right?
Mm-hmm.
Let's say whether it was, software engineering or, design,
Mm-hmm.
how would you build, like, let's say, no, you, for example, you're starting
Mm-hmm.
a new career today, given everything that you know, and
Mm-hmm.
your goal is to get a job within 6 to 12 months. What are
Mm-hmm.
you going to start doing today? And you don't know anything about, the space.
Well, yeah. So that is the $1 million question there. The thing is, at least in software development, you know, if you have a hands-on approach, first I think you need to understand what is your type of learning. How do you learn? If you understand what type of learner you are, for example, one of my sisters are like book learners. They can just take a book, follow chapter by chapter until the end, follow every single instruction and everything like that. I never could be able to do that. Even when I had only books back in the days, I was never linear. So I would say whatever it is, you know, go ahead and first determine like what's your style of learning. And if you don't know what's your best style, or like your I would let's take it back and say what's the one that gives you the most value, the type of learning. And then I would say, okay, don't start something crazy. Maybe take a small book and then a small series on YouTube, and maybe a small like just take like small chunks and see
Hmm.
which one were you enjoying the most. But most important, how did you retain the information? you know
Hmm.
so information retention of information. So like they say, tell me and I'll remember. I mean, tell me and like I'll forget. Show me or something like that. So when you are hands-on and solving like little problems, it might be, if you like the apps on the iPhone, you will say, okay, what does it take to do a to-do app, or like what does it take to do a music app, and then start going and finding out about those stuff. So I would say curiosity, first. Understand the way that you learn, look at the different medium. I think now the problem that we have is we have too many options. you know so find a
Hmm.
good option, get a mentor if you can. And the way to get a mentor is like whatever you want to be in, find the community around you. If you're at school, start that community or join the community, and then start getting inspired by people in that community, and then keep on asking those questions. It is not technology, like many things in life, is not like tennis and everything like that. It's not a one person game. There's an entire team, an entire village, like we say in Africa, around you that will allow you to like get to that part. And 6 to 12 months is not relevant. Some people, 6 to 12 months, they can do a lot of things. Some people, it will take them 6 to 12 months to get like one or two concept. But practice humility, and then be around people that are like that have the same type of mindset. And nowadays the wood is your oyster, basically, because even if you don't have a direct community around you, you have online communities that are out there. Find a community
Hmm.
that is kind, though. I think like sometimes in tech we have communities that can be a little harsh, but see what you stand for, and be about it. And if you find a community that echoes like what you are about, embrace them fully and add value to the community however you can. And you'll see that
Hmm.
people will reach back out and help you as much as they can.
That part is so powerful. about leveraging community. It's interesting because even I like, and even creating it. So one of the things that I had as one of my goals this year was to be more intentional about my YouTube, right? And I
Mhm.
realized that it's not a journey, like it's not easy to do that on my own. So what did I do? I
Mhm.
created this like small WhatsApp group. It's just a handful of us, but I know this were people who were also trying to be on their journey. Two of them, for example, I've never posted a video to YouTube. They bought
Mhm.
all their gear. Now they all have a bunch of videos. But the good thing is, the more we're all sharing, the more
Mhm.
it's inspiring more of us to share, right?
Mhm.
And I think the same concept, just like you're explaining it, it works the same exact way. If you have a goal that you're trying to achieve, find other people who are traveling along that journey because it can get very lonely, right?
Oh
You can
yes.
get frustrated. But when somebody else is also, it can be them even sharing their struggles, because then it doesn't make you feel so weird that you maybe left it for like 2 weeks because you weren't feeling inspired, and
Yeah.
now that could motivate you. Or it could be that you're not finding motivation and somebody tells you about this simple project that they did that really turned out well, and now you're like, wow, I have the
Mhm.
same skills, I can do that. So I
Exactly.
think those things are very important. um,
Yeah.
Maxine has a question. Says, what's your approach to networking? How do you find the time to do it alongside your work?
Well, I mean, I would say like up until maybe 2 3 years ago, the networking was very intentional. So I would like actively go online, find the communities, go to conferences, you know, and then expand on the network. I mean, like when I talk about technology, I can talk about it because that's my passion, but I'm a very timid person. I mean, I'm a very outside of it, I don't even know what to say. So I don't know how to approach people. But I learned though to be a little more open. But like, to come back to the question, there was that intent going to conference. I hosted meetups. I was running 2 meetups when I was in California, you know. And then when people started coming and helping with the meetup, I mean, to this day, there's a lot of people that in my network are from those meetups. But
Mm,
lately, it's been more organic. And then the thing that I
mm,
do though is I give people their flowers. I mean, online, when I see somebody do a nice little tutorial, or somebody share something that I find valuable, I take the time to say thank you for doing this. And just like
mm,
remembering, telling people that I'm grateful that they took the time to add more value. And then that has now, and my DMs most of the time are always open. And however much I try to respond to people whenever they reach out to me, because I have reached out to people before and some responded, some did not. But the thing is, I don't look at it as so right that you have to respond to me. I'm just like, I can put it out there, or like, is there a better way to reach out to you and stuff like that. But the thing is, like, if people warm up to you because they see you in their comments, praising like and I only throw flowers where they are like, if you really I'm very real about that part. Like, people who know me is, if you do a good job, I will tell you. If you don't, I'll have the respect to just not say anything. And the other thing too, I rarely or never have, I think I did it once in my career, engage in, like, dogma type of debate, like React is better than Angular, like Go is better. I don't have time for those. I think it's a waste of time. Honestly, between you and I, let people use whatever tool they want. At the end of the day, the end user doesn't care what language we wrote it in and stuff like that. So those to me are like, the false positive. That's not to me, you know, get rid of the toxicity around. And then if you are not in a toxic community or in a toxic contest, you're gonna attract the right type of people. I
mm,
have
mm,
I have access to some people right now that I feel so privileged to have access to, just because I understood that it was time to be a good human being. So I think, to me, the
mm,
networking is more organic now, so and I'm grateful for that. But yeah, go to meetups, go to conferences, and be intentional about, like, what is it that you want? So if I was to run into Juwan, he has 500 things going on. I'm not gonna make him waste his time. I'll be like, hey man, I've been seeing your podcast and everything like that. Do you think you'll have like 5 minutes or something like where I can like hit you about this? I'll appreciate it if you do. If you don't, no worries. There's a way. Get that etiquette of like approaching people. People like talking about their achievements, what they're doing, and then be a good listener too. I think that's the one that I will end up with. Like, just be a good listener and don't make it always all about you. I think you're gonna gain some good friends in the industry.
I think if you don't take anything away, just clip this last like 6, 7 minutes because that was a master class. Master class. Like you see, what we were talking about working on a team. I
Mhm,
think the more like, and that's why I was actually smiling when you said it. It's like
mhm.
I've said it multiple times. Why do you feel like you deserve to get something from people? What have you given, right? And I like what you said. When people warm up to you, imagine like it's like literally like you go to someone's DM, it's like you asking them to marry you, like, but you've not even courted them, you've not dated them. Like, say hello. Like, if have they shared something? Have you liked? Have you
Yeah.
said
Mhm,
thank you? Have you said something like that? It's
mhm.
and that's the thing. It's like somebody said it on this podcast, and it's so true. It's like we don't like users. Like
Mhm.
we want people who are genuinely interested and curious and engaged. And if you just want to use, we can tell. That's
Yeah.
why you
Yeah.
go straight from this to that. And some like a lot of people have just chosen as their mission to give. And those
Mhm,
people may not care. But there are
mhm,
people who still care, who care about their time. I literally
mhm.
was watching, a guest who's going to be on the show in like 2 weeks say, I'm not going to refer you. Like you're a person on the
Shandai,
internet. Like
I'm waiting for that
Shandai,
one,
yeah,
man. Yes,
exactly.
I'm
Right?
waiting
She
for
was
that one.
saying that. And I
Yeah.
agree with it because often there's a reason why referrals carry weight.
Yeah.
Oftentimes it's that, you know this person, you can vouch for them. So why are you going to ask someone to vouch for you who you don't know, who you've not
Mm.
tried, aside from that request, you've not tried to build any relationship with,
Mm.
right? Some people might do it out of the goodness of their art, but it's going to be different because I bet you she made that video saying that, but there are things that you can do today that not only will she refer you, she would actually give you a heads up on your resume and things like that.
Oh yeah.
But it's not gonna come for free. And
No,
it's
no, no,
not,
no,
she's
no.
not gonna charge you for it, but you will also have to serve. You will also have to give something. And it's as little as recognition, appreciation, gratitude, those little things. You don't
Yeah.
just go to say, give me. Have you given first? And in fact, I thought about when I started to read more and learn more about, the concept, there was this book, How to Win Friends and Influence People, Dale Carnegie. I think everybody should read that book.
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
literally figured that the most selfish thing in the world that you could do is to be generous.
Yeah.
That is the
Yeah.
most, if you're the most self centered person in the world,
Mm-hmm.
be generous. I literally do something where almost every holiday now, I'm very intentional to send people messages.
Oh
Before
yeah.
on those holidays, maybe 2, 3 people might reach out to me and say, "Oh, Happy New Year" or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
Now I get tens, if not hundreds, of messages. You know why? Because I first said 100 first. So it's like it's the same concept. If
Mm-hmm.
you want to be celebrated, celebrate people. If you want to be congratulated, congratulate people. If you
Mm-hmm.
don't give, it's always harder to receive. And that's kind of like I probably say like you said a lot in there that I just wanted to double click on that. That was so helpful.
Yeah.
Um, and I
I
hope that
mean, I
people
mean,
take it
yeah,
and run with
yeah.
it. Sorry,
Definitely.
you
I
were going to
think,
say something.
yeah, yeah, yeah. Like I think his name is Adam Grant, if I'm not mistaken, and he
Yeah.
has a TED talk about givers and takers. And I think that's
Mm.
the best 25 minutes like career advice that anybody or life advice in general. It works for relationship, being a giver or being or being a taker, and then you'll see like, how some people around you or yourself first when you do that introspection, am I a taker or am I a giver? So and then I can you can guess who's gonna be in the long run more successful than the other. I think his name is Adam Grant.
Yeah,
If I
yeah, that's
yeah
his name.
yeah, like if you
He's
go
an author.
to yeah, so if you go to like the TED Talks, I think that's the best. That's when I used to have like mentees, like people that I mentor and stuff like that. My requirement number one before we have our first meeting, I will send you a link to that one, and I will say be ready to talk about it if you want us to keep on having our sessions. That was a requirement for me. I think he really nails a lot of good things in there. Yeah, I highly recommend it.
Mm. That is so powerful. I know we're at the hour, but usually
Mhm,
we always give this chance. So if you have anything you want to promote, shout out, a last piece of advice, or all three if you want. Right,
mhm.
this is your moment.
Oh yeah, I mean, well, promotion. Well, I mean, just follow me online if you want to know what I'm about, and if you want to keep on having this type of conversation, my DMs are open. I think all of my handles, LinkedIn, Twitter, YouTube, is like just my first and last name combined, ADYNGOM. You know, I work on a lot of cool stuff, So if you follow my social channels, you'll see what those are about. But I don't think this is the space to to do this kind of like type of. What I would say is, in the giver mentality, trust in yourself. At the end of the day, and I really like the choose your heart mentality, meaning that you're gonna have to choose your heart at some point, so like one of them is like laying down on the couch is hard. I mean, like, and gaining weight is hard. Having like extra weight is hard. Losing weight is hard. Choose your heart.
Yep.
Being financially free is hard. you know Making a lot of money is hard. Choose your heart. So to me, when you have that choose your heart mentality, choose your battles. And then like the biggest hurdle that you're ever gonna run into in whatever your endeavor might be is gonna be yourself, and then how you limit yourself. Right now in tech, sky is the limit. Never in time, like, knowledge has been so accessible, and then so spread out, so ride on that AI train, ride on the web development train, on the IoT train. Like, AI came and nobody's talking about IoT anymore, but IoT is still hot, man. Come on. There are so many cool things, there are so many cool problems to tackle. We need like 500,000 more the time of like whatever tech keys we have right now. So it's
Mm.
wide open. Don't let anybody tell you otherwise. You have your place in here. Find it and come and take it. I think that's it for me.
Absolutely. Yeah, and that's a really great way to end it because, especially now when there's so much negativity, a lot of fear, a lot of apprehension. I think that that's definitely a message of hope. There's still a lot of opportunity out there. People are
Oh,
getting hired every single day.
hey,
Roles are
yep.
opening up. I know it's not 2021. We're not partying like 2021,
Yeah.
but there's still opportunity out there for the person who's driven, who's
Mm,
energized, and who knows exactly what they want. And that's what
mhm.
this show is about. We're always bringing people like Addy today who have experience in this industry, who can share that experience. And I hope that you learn a lot from his experience and every other person. Go check out. We're at 34 episodes as of now. A lot of power pack stuff about networking, applying, landing that role. There's a bunch of different roles that you want to learn, that you can learn about. That's being our show tonight. Thanks so much, Adi, for coming and sharing your time. This has been absolutely amazing. Thanks for also giving us all those throwbacks to Internet Explorer 6 and learning coding in the books. I think
Yeah,
that those
man.
blasts from the past is definitely very, very
Mm,
helpful to even set context for people who live in the era
yeah.
of Claude and ChatGPT and Gemini.
I'm telling you, man. Thanks you for having me, man. And like awaiting like eagerly to see episode 100. I mean, I'm awaiting the next one because I'm not gonna miss Shondai on this platform. And like,
Yeah.
God willing, like let's get to 100 like pretty quickly.
Oh
Big
yeah.
up to
Oh
you
yeah.
and thank you to the audience.